Solve the initial value problem. Y double prime minus 2y prime plus y equals 0. Y at 0 equals 2. And y prime at 0 is equal to negative 1. Alright, so same thing as usual. Characteristic polynomial, find the general solution, then solve for C1 and C2 for the initial conditions. So right, this one will be r squared minus 2r plus 1 e to the rx equals 0. And that ends up factoring into r minus 1 and r minus 1. Yeah, e to the rx equals 0. So then we have y1 is equal to e to the x, 1 times x. And then y2, right, it's a repeated root, will end up being x, e to the x. And the general solution, y of x, c1y1 plus c2y2. Well, that's c1 e to the x plus c2 x e to the x. All right, now next up, we need to solve for the initial conditions. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have y evaluated at 0. Well, that's going to be c1 times e to the 0 plus c2. Let's write that out. c1 e to the 0 plus c2 times 0 e to the 0. And that's not that bad. It's just c1, because 0 just kills everything over there. And we're told that's 2. All right, that's nice. So then c1 is 2, and we figured out c1. Well, what about the other initial condition? What about y prime? Well, that one's a little annoying because we have to actually compute y prime. So y prime of x is equal to, all right, well, it's going to be c1 e to the x, right? Derivative of e to the x is e to the x. And then we're going to have plus c2, and we're going to have to do a product rule here. So let's do the non-derivative of the x times derivative of e to the x, that ends up being x. Derivative of e to the x is x. And then plus the derivative of x is 1 times non-derivative of e to the x. Which, if we rewrite that a little, is c1 e to the x plus c2. We can pull out the e to the x, we get x plus 1 e to the x. All right, so now we have y prime. Now we're going to plug in 0 for x. All right, well then we get c1 e to the 0 plus c2 times 0 plus 1 e to the 0. That ends up being c1 plus c2. And we already know what c1 is, so let's go ahead here. We have c1 is 2 plus c2. We know that y prime has to equal negative 1. So we also know that, 2 plus c2 has to equal negative 1. So that's going to mean that c2 is equal to negative 3. So then the solution to this initial value problem is y of x equals 2 e to the x minus 3 x e to the x.